That's what happens when you've lived beyond your means. It catches up with you when you get old. Sue Hincenberg, the retirement plan. Regular contributor Danielle McLaughlin and I are reviewing The Retirement Plan by Canadian author Sue Hincenberg. Danielle, welcome back to the show. This is going to be an interesting one.
It is, and it's nice to see you again, Jacob. I always like to hear what you think of the book before I blather on. So this is going to be fun.
Hold your thoughts.
I
know we both have a lot to say. Let me get through the basics. Here's a synopsis so that everybody knows what we're talking about. 3 wives wanting a new life, 3 husbands in their way. After 30 years of friendship, Pam dreams of her perfect retirement with Nancy, Shalisa, Marlene, and their husbands, until their husbands pool their funds together for an investment that goes terribly wrong, and their dreams of beachfront condos and a sunny, carefree retirement vanish. The golden years are looking as dreary as their marriages. But when one husband dies in a freak accident, the other 3 women are shocked to see his widow rebound with a huge life insurance payout and the new life in Florida. In the aftermath, the women discovered that their husbands have identical 7-figure life insurance policies. A new dream forms, and this time it involves a hitman. Meanwhile, their husbands have a secret retirement plan of their own. So, when things begin to go awry, they fear their own scheme may have backfired with deadly consequences. The husbands scramble to stay alive, but they may not be fast enough to outmaneuver their wives. What follows is a high-stakes tale of cat and mouse, both laugh out loud funny and unbearably tense, while ultimately a big-hearted look at marriage, friendship, and middle age. This book was published on May 6th, 2025, and is still selling well in Canada as we're recording this on July 7th, 2025. The audiobook is a merciless 11 hours, available on Seal and human narrated audio with, it has to be said, very good narration by Kiri Sandy and John Perhala. Danielle, you sent me an email last week saying, and I quote, "Hey Jacob, anytime you want me to tell you how much I dislike the retirement plan, just give me a date." Here we are. What are your opening remarks?
Well, Jacob, I think the summary you just gave was overly generous, shall we say, to the book. First of all, it was really boring. There was no, in my view, there was no tension. Every plot twist was broadcast well in advance. You knew it was coming. And then I don't know how many times they summarized what was going on, where one character or another had to repeat exactly what had just happened. But I thought, is this because they intended it for some other medium than a book? Or, were they thinking this would be fun if it were a movie? But it sure didn't work for me. I just found it just tedious as hell. I also found the characters were universally unbelievable. Not one of them rang true, and every now and then they'd sort of dip into a kind of emotive, oh, I really love my husband, even though I wanted to murder him kind of moment, which equally did not ring true. And the whole dream of this retirement sitting on a beach doesn't ring true in this century. The whole thing was just it was a plot that was desperately trying to seek its trajectory, and characters that were minimal at best. There was also a little bit of voice appropriation, which I wasn't sure I felt comfortable with the owner of the casino, and also with the hitman. They seem to be stereotypical. One was South Asian, one was from El Salvador, but very stereotyped, and it was just, oh, come on. I looked at my watch; it still said 2025, and I thought, okay. And now, yes, and you said it was 11 hours, was it?
Yes.
I had to keep taking breaks and read something else, so I had no real, perception of how long it would take to read it aloud because I kept thinking, "I need to step away for a little while," because yeah, it wasn't doing it for me. So how did you find 11 hours of this?
It was one of those books where I didn't feel bad about playing it at 1.5x speed, which is
Ah,
significantly faster than I would usually listen to a book.
and was it 11 hours at 1.5?
It was about 8 hours at 1.5,
Holy moly.
thankfully. Still a lot, but listen, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that this book is very unsuspenseful. Like, it's boring.
It
It's flat
is.
out boring, and a lot of the plot twists, they're not just projected. They're not just telegraphed and it's obvious what's gonna happen.
Mhm.
They're the way they're written is very undramatic. Like, the
Very.
reveals are very much like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
it? That's
exactly. Did you find yourself going,
what
"Yeah,
about it?"
yeah,
Yes, yeah, constantly.
yeah,
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 constantly.
yeah."
Okay, you did a really good job at recapping all of my thoughts, but I wanna dive a little deeper into each of them. But before we do that, I just wanna make it clear that, like, we don't like giving bad reviews on this show because we'd much rather bring your attention to books we can get behind. I saw great reviews for The Retirement Plan
Mhm.
online, believe it or
Were they
not, and
written
it
by any
was
of her relatives?
they might have been
I when
if
sometimes when you have that reaction and you see all these reviews, you think, "Okay, she either wrote them herself, got her mother to write one, or something like that." I'm even Goodreads is like, I just don't trust the reviews. So, no, I agree with you. I prefer to like a book than to dislike it, but having
Mhm.
said that, Jacob, it's awfully fun to really dislike a book from time to time, isn't it?
Oh, it is kind of fun, especially when you get to do it with somebody else to
Yes.
commiserate a little bit. But, like,
Exactly.
I don't just want to dunk on this book, like, I want to be as constructive as possible. So, we both committed to reading this thing. We did. We both finished it. So, we're gonna see this through, all right?
Mhm.
Something I wanna add is that one of the things that stood out to me right away, specifically about the writing that drove me nuts, was how often there were cringy references to movie and
Yes!
TV shows and pop culture references,
I'm
that
so
type of
glad
thing.
you mentioned that. Absolutely. I thought, "Oh, why? Like, do you even need that?" Did it feel really lazy to you? Like, I can't really describe what's going on, so I'm just gonna make a pop that's a relatively aged pop culture reference.
Yes.
You notice? Yeah.
Yeah. I have a
Oh,
perfect example of this.
okay.
The women were all shocked to see Marlene was laughing hard, as if she was watching Robin Williams do stand up.
Wow.
First of all, very aged reference. Uh,
Yeah.
But, like, who is this for? I
Is it
I
meant for
can't put
women
my
in their
hand.
50s maybe? Is that I You know what? It's
It
also
is
really American considering that this woman is, well, purports to be a Canadian. It's so America focused, and because I'm not that familiar with Florida or wherever it is they live in the states, I couldn't tell whether it was, an accurate depiction of this area or whether she's just kind of making it up as she goes along the way she does with like a Robin Williams reference. I mean, there are people who like still tune into his stand-up comedy because he was very funny, but wow, that was, I mean, how long has he been gone? At least 10 years, right?
it's not just that there were references from like the narrator's point of view. It's that a lot of the characters were constantly making references to movies and TVs to the point where the women, the three wives, they would, because they're trying to, like, blackmail slash murder their husbands, they watch like crime movies and they call it recommended viewing or
Yeah.
mandatory viewing, and they send them movies and they're like, oh, this movie with so and so actor. And these references, guys, constant. I
Yep.
Every second paragraph, there's a reference to these things, which might have to do with Sue Hincenbergs actually being a TV producer for a long time. She was very
uh,
involved in the entertainment industry. Um, and this whole thing with referencing movies and TV shows and pop culture um, is something I hear a lot of people complain about online as like kind of a rookie author thing to do. But
yeah.
Yeah, did not stop Sue Hincenbergs from doing it constantly, and I have a feeling it's one of those things that like her editors like encouraged to do because it had like character or something. It was like distinctive. I don't know. It did not do it for me.
I think it's instead of character. I think it's a really I think it's a really lazy device to, "Oh, she's the kind of person who enjoys watching this sort of movie, therefore I know who she is." No, not really. But yeah, it's just lazy. In fact, I thought that when I was complaining about it to my husband, he said, "Was she paid by the word?" And I really got I really got that feeling because I mean, if you took the plot and you condensed it to a short story and made it move really quickly, dropped out all of those irritating things, and maybe built the characters into actual people like people, it would be a passable short story. But no, yeah, not I really did find all of those movie references, like, time and again, it just kept
It was
coming back.
egregious. It was
Yeah,
egregious. It was really bad. I think I'm convinced that this book was built around one idea, and that's the idea that these three women hire a hitman to kill their husbands for like a some sort of insurance payout, while at the same time the plot twist is that while at the same time the husbands hire that same hitman to protect them from the people that are trying to kill them. And so the hitman, what they do what he calls double dip, where the where it looks like he kills the husbands, but what actually happens is that he helps the husbands fake their deaths, and so he gets paid from both parties. Kind of a cool concept. The only part of the plot that I thought was actually kind of cool, even though the twist was kind of obvious because of the way it was written, but then all the fluff around it was just to accommodate that initial good idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
yeah.
swear the book was centered around that idea.
Not even sure that first of all, it is a good idea, or secondly, that it hasn't been done before. I suspect that at least in some fashion, it's been done before. I mean, it's interesting. One person does get killed, and he is the most egregious character. He comes on from the very first as being sort of an oily,
Oily.
yeah, nasty guy who's just out there to use people, and the and when he gets killed, there's zero sympathy, right? It's just like, oh yeah, throw him in a closet. That's okay.
Just the clear
Uh,
bad guy, which they call the fiscal falcon. I think that's who you're
yes,
talking
that's
about.
the one.
Except they come up with the very clever nickname of the fiscal fudge face, which
Yes.
it's like, how lowbrow is that?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that was
that's
so cringy.
that's kinda 12-year-old stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, it's not even that. I
And these are retirement age ladies too. Like,
presume, yeah, they were meant to be in their 60s. Well, you know, I've hung around with groups of women much of my life. I have been among women of that age and now older. Uh, we don't talk like that. We don't think like that. Um, and we're also, the idea that you want to do away with your husband and then you can find three women who think equally that it would be a great idea to get rid of their husbands. Uh, this that premise alone is ludicrous. You can be really irritated at him. You might want to leave. You might want to think, geez, this guy should be bringing in more money. But none of that rings true. I mean, it's just it's not even as good as a Disney plot. It really just it fails on so many levels that I wondered why it was popular. Why do you think it's popular?
I think the premise does a lot of heavy lifting.
Mm,
Stories of retirement have a lot of sway because just of demographics. There are
mm.
way more boomers than any other generation. The boomers are retiring right now,
We are
or
out
they're
there.
mostly retired at that point, and
Yeah.
lots of people are reading lots of retirement content, including my parents. I won't be recommending this book though,
No, actually,
but
there's a little library on my street, and when we're finished speaking, it's going right into it. Somebody else can suffer this thing.
so I know what people are thinking right now, especially if you enjoyed this book. They'll say that the story is clearly not meant to be taken seriously, like it's goofy and meant to be whimsical. And I've read books before that were unserious like this one, and I enjoy them because at the very least they were entertaining or funny, or riveting in
Yeah.
some sort of way. Like just because, okay, this might seem weird. Just because a book is unserious, that doesn't mean it needs to be unintelligent. And I think
No.
this book veers into being unintelligent. Uh,
Yeah.
it not
I agree.
Worse than that is that it seems to not respect the intelligence of the reader
That's right.
in repeating plot points constantly. Like if you somehow read this book and misunderstood a plot point, you are an awful reader. Like,
Yeah, or you skipped a whole lot of pages, right? If
yeah,
that's
exactly. Which
yeah.
I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah, no, I really not.
So
But,
these books that I've read before that were unserious, but I enjoyed. I actually find a lot of romances like that. It's light and fluffy, but it can be entertaining. I have no problem with that. But what I've realized isn't working for me in this book is that its sense of humor just doesn't resonate with me. It really doesn't resonate with me. It feels like a lot of the comedy comes from
sitcoms, it's a
the character.
sitcom
It
book.
is a sitcom. Oh, but like sitcoms don't work well as books, though,
Well, that's
right?
right. I mean, it's a sort of 1960s sitcom book. I mean, what people thought was really funny, say in the Mary Tyler Moore show, back then, really doesn't do it now. You think that was worth a big laugh, and yet this thing is doing exactly that kind of thing. That it's that kind of lowbrow humor, as you said. I mean, I agree with you. There are plenty of unserious books that are really worth a read. I mean, I think about something like Alice in Wonderland. By Lewis Carroll, which was not really written
Mhm.
for children. It's not serious. It's extremely playful, but it has many ideas in it and many things that make you think, wait a minute. And this book could have done that. I mean, a plot that has many twists can make you think, gee, did I get that right? Or, oh my goodness, isn't that silly the way that turned out? Or isn't that funny? This did none of those things. There are so many characters who could have been fleshed out, and but there was nothing to flesh out. Whereas if you think about other books that are just written to be a fun read, often the characters are well fleshed out, and the
Still
reason
fleshed
you like
out.
it, yeah, right, you like it because you think that person's really quirky. I think I could read more about him or her, right?
What makes a light book isn't the fact that the book is simple. It doesn't have too many
No,
elements or depth. It's that the themes are easy to digest.
yeah,
You're not talking about all of these dark topics and these really convoluted plots that are kind of hard to wrap your head around. You can still have depth in an easy read. And this book is a awful combination of being a super easy read while also having like zero depth. The
yeah,
best books, honestly, are very digestible, relatively easy reads, but also have an incredible amount of depth when you look into it. Like this one is shallow as a puddle,
yeah.
and I
Well,
think a
I,
a lot of the comedy
mhm.
comes from all of these misunderstandings between characters. And when your plot and your comedy is driven by misunderstandings, it's kind of frustrating. It's
Yeah,
not that clever,
and they
and it's
even
really frustrating.
misunderstandings. They're just that everybody seems to know what everyone else is doing. It's just kind of that it doesn't even go that far. I was there's a new, series on BritBox that I've been watching. It's called Outrageous, and it's about the Mitford sisters, and it's based on their real lives. And they were the most bizarre people, but the eldest, Nancy, wrote a bunch of, novels, and they were never taken as serious novels, but they're very smart. Um, you know,
Mm.
and if you read something by Nancy Mitford or by her sister Jessica, um, you're reading something that really makes you think, even though it's light and it has a sort of a fluffy edge to it. You still think, it's a sort of comedy of manners, even though this is based on somebody who led this really strange life. Um, there's a novel called Wigs on the Green that Nancy Mitford wrote about one of her sisters who had a passion for Hitler, and went off to spend time. I mean, the story. You don't need plot twists; they're all real. They're bizarre, but the you know the likelihood of somebody seeing that as being a funny novel, um, who would have thought? And yet it really is a light, not very long, just a great sort of fun thing to read. So people y- knew, like, if you think about Evelyn Waugh or PG Wodehouse. I mean, those are really light books if you want to read about Bertie Wooster, and Jeeves, his manservant. I mean, those are very light books. They're very funny. They do tell you something about the time in which they were written. They have many plot twists. You know, and they're great fun and great and easy to read, and they don't make you feel insulted when you're finished, like that phrase that I'm afraid I used on you before, which is, "I may never get this time back." You know? Yes.
Well,
Uh,
I do feel partly responsible for that because I made you read this book thinking it
you
would be good.
did,
So
and you
I
you
do
are
owe
for
you an apology.
you are forgiven, completely forgiven, because I suspect that whatever we read next, it won't be this bad.
No, I guarantee you we're not doing another review like this one. Um, Comedy is directly tied to intelligence, in my opinion, because to be
I
a
think
good
so.
comedian, you need to be very observant to make connections that other people wouldn't, because comedy is surprise. It's Comedy is always a plot twist, essentially.
Yeah.
And when things feel lowbrow is when comedy comes from something stupid. And
Yeah,
all the characters are all just kind of daft in this one. Can I read you a couple quotes here? Um,
please.
l- Listen to this. Nancy, if we were spotted shopping for black dresses 2 days before we needed them for our husband's funerals, how would that look to the police? Oh, Nancy sat back in her seat. Sorry, I didn't think about that. You're absolutely right. I saw 75% off and got carried away. Is the joke
Yeah.
here that Nancy's just stupid? Like, why is
I
that funny?
I don't find it funny. I find it like, "Uh-huh," you know,
Yes,
it's
uh-huh,
yeah,
exactly.
uh-huh, yeah, okay, got it. You
And
didn't
then
think of yeah, no, it
and then
doesn't
there's
do
this
it.
one. And then there's this line which has like an in character's internal monologue being kind of silly. How had she gone from growing up as a Girl Scout and being president of the president of the parent council to hiring hitmen and being accused of grand theft auto? Well, grand theft without the auto, but still. Why would you include
Uh-huh.
a correction in her internal
Oh,
monologue?
I think
Is
it's
that
because
strange?
no, you know what it
Yeah.
is? It's she takes a cliché and tries to, think of Grand Theft. Grand Theft Auto is a video game,
Yeah.
and so her mind automatically goes to yet another popular culture reference,
Oh my god, I
and
didn't think of that.
yeah, and
Yes.
so it's like, "Oh, ha, ha, ha," no, you're right. I mean, every one of these things just falls flat. It's it's you
I have one that actually hadn't me
oh, good,
chuckling. This was in the prologue.
okay.
It goes, Nancy, what have you learned from all of this? Oh, sorry. What have you learned from all of this, Marlene? Marlene glowed as she answered. I've learned to seize the day. Manuel calls it Manuel calls it carpe diem. He speaks Spanish, you know. I mean,
Only that's
like
Latin, but never mind.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of it's like stupidity, but it's also kind of clever. I mean,
I
it's
couldn't tell
exactly the
if
type of thing somebody dumb would do, you know?
yeah, but I couldn't tell which of them was meant to be the stupid one because they kinda all were, right? I mean, it's a you know, it's pots and kettles, right?
It's like,
It's
okay, think of like it's kind of a trope to have like a character in a group to be like the dumb one. It's
mhm,
like I kind of like those characters. Listen, I grew up watching SpongeBob. Okay, like
okay.
Patrick Star is hilarious, and like all the jokes come from him just being kind of daft. You can't have a show that's just 20 Patrick Stars. It just doesn't work.
No,
And this show is 20 Patrick Stars. This book
yeah.
is 20 Patrick Stars.
Well, I interesting that you said show too, because my sense as I was reading it is she's desperate to sell this to TV, right? She would like this to be a streaming series. That's how it read, and I think with all the recaps, it it
It's
me I thought, okay, that this is for the
an
streaming
episode recap.
series. She's got yeah, yeah.
Yes.
you know?
She already wrote the episode descriptions. They're just
That's
said by the
it.
characters themselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
Honestly.
I
The writing is quite clunky at times
Mhm.
too. Let me read you an example. And the investment had gone south, way south, like to Antarctica, where it died surrounded by penguins and whales, metaphorically speaking. Yes, obviously it's a metaphor. Why
Jeez.
would you add that? How dumb do
Yeah.
you think I am? Obviously
Yeah.
it's a metaphor, not literally.
Wow. Well, and here's the real cringe that I feel is that she added metaphorically speaking because she is thinking that her readers are that dumb, and and also that by
That's
using the
exactly.
word metaphor, she thinks she's bringing it up a notch or two. That creates a higher level of book. No, it doesn't. But yeah, I mean it was somewhat insulting to read, wasn't it?
It's did it make you feel a little dumb? You're like, it's like
That's why I kept having to take breaks to read something, let's shall we say, a little more literary,
a little more stimulating, right?
Yeah,
Like, okay, we sound so condescending right now. I don't really care.
that's okay.
Like the thing, the word that keeps coming to mind is lowbrow,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
bad?
No, why
Mm,
would it be bad? I mean,
okay,
I consider myself a reader of literary
mm,
fiction. I mean, I really enjoy a well-written novel, short story, or even nonfiction.
mhm.
But it's the literary part that I really appreciate, and this had none of that. None of it.
Danielle, we'll read a better book next time. But I
We
really
will.
appreciate your comments on this one. I think we were constructive. We weren't just whinging. I don't think. Like, I don't like doing this. I really don't. Like, I know it's kind of entertaining, but it's not good to be negative like this all the time. We want to keep positive books coming your way. You'll have positive books coming your way next time. Have a good one. Thank you so much. That was Danielle McLaughlin. She's a regular contributor to the show, and we were reviewing The Retirement Plan by Sue Hincenbergs. That's all the time we have for this edition of AMI Audiobook Review. AMI Audiobook Review airs weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio and repeats every 6 hours. We're on all the big podcasting platforms, and that includes YouTube. You can leave us feedback at audiobook review at ami.ca. That's audiobook review at ami.ca for all your feedback. And you can also follow us on Instagram at AMI Audiobook Review. Our handle is at AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Shymanski. Happy listening.